What are the benefits of alting in RuneScape? And if they are so helpful, when should you bother to go make an alt? Alts are incredibly useful for many things. Usually people use them to make money on their own, but they can also help you tremendously at bosses, raids, and even some skilling activities. It would generally be faster for me to list the bosses that do not benefit from alts rather than list where they are useful. That's how often you can utilize an alt for benefit. For many bosses, an alt can speed up kills per hour by over 50%. I'd highly recommend checking out the Gear Discord and Pet Cords respectively. Both include various alting methods that can help you at a multitude of bosses. The Pet Cord even includes a basic Rune Dragon alt guide, which doubles as a great PVM alt. I'm not going to include every single alt method as this video would be far too long, but I'll cover the basic general alts and give examples. An alt is an alternative account. You can use them on the side at the same time as you gain on your main. The sooner you begin building up an alt, the sooner it will benefit you. If you are considering making an alt, you should probably just do it rather than waiting. Alts require investment in order to not only pay for membership, but also to pay for levels and unlocks that will assist you. If you have some spare cash and free time, bond them up and get them going. It's only going to benefit you in the long run. The faster you get them gaining, the faster they pay for themselves and earn for you. This video is primarily going to focus on alts that benefit PVM rather than moneymakers. Investing in your alt only allows it to perform more functions that will help your account progress faster. What is the purpose of an alt? Alts are effectively summoning from RS2 with extra steps. People often use a bunch of alts at the same time as money printers, but I've found money is really no object if you enjoy PVM anyways. Doing a good amount of raids, nightmare, necks, etc. brings in boatloads of GP over time, and money-making alts make the game into more of a chore than anything, at least personally. The real benefit is speeding up pet grinds dramatically. Not to mention they boost the GP an hour of any boss they are assisting with regardless, as well as reducing supply use. I often see people say alting is too sweaty for them, but alts typically reduce the input required at any given boss. A great example of this is Dolo Armadillo. The alt speeds up kills per hour from 25 to 30, while also allowing your trip to stay an entire task easily and completely removing the need to do that awkward chin clicking method where you are on Arma for 2 ticks and on the minion for 1 tick each attack. An alt increases Arma up to almost 8.5 mil GP an hour total, while also making him far easier intensity-wise. Any boss that requires a unique method, say Zami 5-0, Bandos 9-0, when done Dolo, is reduced down to click the boss on the alt, then click the boss on the main, which is always really relaxing. Even when you cannot attack the boss in your alt, like say Kraken or Cerberus, an alt can sit nearby and cast Heal Other and Spec Transfer repeatedly, while taking drops when your inventory is full, then running and getting more supplies. All of these features dramatically increase trip lengths and kills per hour, while allowing you to avoid using an expensive Blood Fury Scythe combo or something like that. When is a good time to start making an alt? I highly recommend starting when on any long-term AFK grind. AFK pets or 99s are a perfect excuse. Redwoods for Beaver is a 331-hour grind on average. This gives you roughly a month of playtime to work on an alt, which is enough time to get an effectively maxed alt. If you got spooned there, there's also Karen Bonds with Fish Barrel for Heron, Blood Runes for Rift Guardian, and Amethyst for Rock Golem. AFKing for any of these pets gives you loads of time to level up an alt and finish up important quests. I'd highly recommend abusing Quest Helper plugin if making an alt. It trivializes almost every quest in the game. I remember I was dreading doing Mornings on Part 2 on my alt, and it took only around 40 minutes, even with quite a few agility fails. Even one small favor is only a 20-minute quest with the helper. Once your alt has the majority of quests done, and you've chained and barraged to your heart's content, it's just a matter of AFKing in Nightmare Zone to finish the alt off, which you can easily do while doing anything else on your main. It usually takes a couple weeks of playtime to get an alt to the state where it is maxed besides melees, so map out your AFK accordingly if you want a fully completed alt. Having multiple alts is great, but even just one solid max alt covers you at most activities. What unlocks and levels matter on an alt? There's tons of unlocks that benefit an alt. Magic and agility are some of the most important though. Magic unlocks the use of Pot Share, Energy Transfer, and Vengeance Other. Energy Transfer is likely the most important spell. It hits your alt for 10 damage and transfers his special attack meter to your main, as well as completely restoring run energy. This is useful at a huge list of bosses. Dream is also a useful spell at many locations for increased HP regen. Agility unlocks many important shortcuts like the routes to Cerberus, and helps regenerate run energy, which matters a lot on a resupply alt. Not to mention it unlocks the graceful outfit, which is what your alt is going to be wearing the majority of the time. Max combat is useful in general. You Dolo with ranged and melee quite often at a lot of bosses. Combats are very easily trained with barrages, splashing, chins, and Nightmare Zone. Construction is also very important. In the beginning, you can use a Ring of Dueling for restoration at Clan Wars, but this is far too slow for a lot of methods. 83 construction on an ult is extremely useful, not only for the health pool, but also the fairy ring and teleports, allowing you to get to many bosses quickly. Some other useful and tradable unlocks are Zarek's Talisman, as well as a tablet from Chambers for quick banking. Just having ult leech in raids gets this easily. Dragon Defender, Avernic if you're a baller. Assembler, Barrel's Gloves, which are the best tank gloves, keep that in mind. And Void is also useful in various places. Inferno Cape is the best offensive and defensive melee cape in the game, so obviously it's very useful on an ult. Fire Cape is fine in the meantime. I'd highly recommend going for it once you have 99 ranged on it before you go for melee training if you've done Inferno on your main. It's a great excuse to get back in there. Make sure you barrage on defensive as well for some defense levels if you aren't splashing it to 99 for help in the Inferno. Hit Points Cape and Magic Cape are both incredibly useful for their perks as well. Finally, several diaries are useful. Canron for Bolt Procs and Arma, Western Provinces for Elite Void, and Wilderness for Obelisks. Keep in mind there are many unlocks that you do not need whatsoever in ult. For example, skilling outfits, like Prospectors, Anglers, etc. So you can just skip the Motherlode Mine if you want, for example. I've had a lot of people ask me if I used an ult guide or something like that to make my ult, and the answer to that is really no. Making an ult is pretty much exactly the same as making a main, except you can supply the ult with resources from the main. So it's basically like speedrunning the early game. Rushing optimal quests like Waterfall Quest and training important skills is the real focus, but you don't need to do anything perfectly optimally though, obviously. People usually think of ults as money printers, which is a great use if you were doing a lot of skilling. But one of the most useful and lowest requirement ults is a resupply ult. Any boss that is far from a bank can benefit from having an ult run supplies to you, and for the most part your ult can be a fresh level 3 for this purpose usually. Nightmare, Cerberus, Abyssal Sire, Dagonoth Kings, all God Wars dungeon bosses, even Kraken and Syracuse all benefit from having an ult not only to provide you with fresh supplies, but taking loose loot off your hands as well. The ult, besides saving just a ton of time not banking on the main, can open up the option of using things like Divine Potions or more gear switches at bosses you would never use them at normally. Dagonoth Kings are a really good example of this. Fresh ults have various other benefits as well, holding scouted raids for you for solo or team cocks, picking up loot at barrage tasks, KQ and or Zulrah, scouting areas in the wilderness, and touching the boat for Tempros to start solo games faster. If you want to beef up a resupply ult, you can work towards getting it Lunar Diplomacy and 91 Magic for both Potion Share and Energy Transfer, or even 93 for Vengeance Other. Now when your ult comes to take your goods off your hands and give you more supplies, it can also top up your health and fill both your special attack and run energy, which is huge. Every single Slayer boss, except Gargoyles and Hydra, benefit from an ult. For most of these, your ult isn't allowed to attack the boss at the same time as you, but it tremendously helps to have it run supplies and heal or spec transfer you. Sire, you can just skip the house tab every kill and have the ult bring the house to you by using House Pool and running from Fairy Ring each kill. DKs, your ult brings a second set of supplies, and then Dreams there, spec transferring and healing when needed. Cerberus is the same as DKs, except you can easily run and grab more supplies by having him hit a bank, then teleport to his house in Taverley and run back. You can get really sweaty with an ult at Thermi, having him repeatedly run from house to Fairy Ring to the cave to give you a constant supply of claw specs as needed. At Kraken, your ult can dream right behind you, giving you a constant supply of health and volatile specs, as well as taking unnoted drops like Sandfew Serums. Let's talk places where you can fight the boss in both main and ult. Not only do these overlap with the higher level money-making ults anyways, meaning very high requirements, but they can dramatically boost your kills per hour at a huge amount of bosses, oftentimes increasing the GP an hour by more than if they were off doing Rune Dragons or something, and typically, counterintuitively, lowering the intensity of the boss being killed. Great examples are all God Wars dungeon bosses. Ulting at Zami and Bandos dramatically reduces the intensity and increases the kills per hour. Your ult just tanks and the main attacks on the side. And at Sarah and Arma, ults can increase trip lengths by an insane amount. I have had an 8-hour Dolo Zilliana trip before. And the Avianzi tasks are guaranteed done in one trip with an ult, even if you get the max roll of 250. You can also Dolo at King Black Dragon, Corporeal Beast, Syracuse, Scorpia, and Callisto. These can even be expanded to Trollo, which is trio solo, at many of these bosses, or even Quadrolo for some. How do you even play the game on 2 accounts at once? This requires some decent setup. Until recently, I played full screen, so I had a triple monitor set up with my main on a monitor, ult on another monitor, and browsing stuff on my third. This was extremely awkward and had me flinging my head all over the place, to the point it was a meme on my streams. I downsized my main to 1536 by 864 resolution on my 1440p monitor, allowing me to fit more things nearby. My ult sits nicely in the corner, and I have several panels with my stream information, with screen space for additional ults in the future. It definitely takes some getting used to, but for most Dolo methods, you don't actively play on both accounts at once. In places like God Wars, you're just clicking the boss on your ult once, and then you're focusing on the main, possibly doing some prep between kills. Try not to burn out from making too many ults. I know more than one person who experienced that. This game isn't a job, and it's not a chore unless you make it one. If you're making 4 money-making ults on the side and feel like it's only worth playing the game with all 4 of those running, but it's so intensive to run them all you don't even feel like logging into the game, you've probably gone too far. Ults aren't very efficient if you end up quitting the game because of them. Moderation is important. If you want to go run a ton of ults because that's fun for you, more power to you. Just make sure you keep those limits in mind. If you're watching this around when it goes up, I will be live on Twitch. I'll be doing the new quest, and then jumping into Inferno to try to snag a sub 55-minute run. There will likely be plenty of tutorial skipping content going on as well, so feel free to ask any questions you have at that point. I've almost hit 1,000 followers, so make sure you check me a follow if you haven't, so we can hit that milestone. And that's it for the video. Leave a like if you liked it, and or subscribe. Thanks, guys.